No problem at all, my friend. Just let me just take this off and put that on. That'll make it easier. I think that's better.
All right, great. I wanted to ask about the creative process for Unfinished Business. How long did it take to put the material together?
We started initially the end of 2023, sorry, 2022, and then we had a lineup change, which kind of changed it a little bit. Our vocalist at the time, Cy Davis, had to leave the band due to personal issues, which meant we had to recruit a new vocalist, which took a little bit of time, which slowed us down a bit, but we got there in the end.
And as far as the tracks, I wanted to ask you if you could speak on one of my favorite tracks, which was It Wasn't Just Me.
Yeah. It wasn't just, we've never done a ballad before, ever. But even back in the day, back in the early 80s, or since we reformed in 2015, we've never done a ballad. It's always been on our to-do list, you know, and we decided probably at the beginning of this year, quite late in the process, that we'd like to put a ballad on the album. Steve Maguire, one of the co-founding members of the band and guitarist, went away and came back and said, "What do you think about this?" And we liked it a lot. We tweaked it a little bit, as everything was a band do. When people bring material into the rehearsal room or whatever, it comes in, and then as a band, we dissect it, we play with it, we enhance it, we mess about with it. Sometimes we discard it if we don't think it'll work, but most of the time we kind of embellish it and move forward, and that's what we did with it. But it wasn't just me.
And Darkness Within is another one of my favorite tracks. I wanted to know if you could speak on that one as well.
Darkness Within was a contribution from our newer guitarist, Simon Lind. Again, he brought it into the rehearsal room. It's not quite the same now as it was when it came in, but again, it's quite. I'm not a guitarist, I'm a drummer, but it's detuned, and it just gives it a heavier feel and a kind of a dirtier feel, you know.
I wanted to ask you, as far as lyrics, do they come in vinyl? In your process, do the tracks come to you musically first and then you add lyrics, or how does it usually come about?
Again, it all changes. I probably do maybe 40% of the lyrics, and I'll just write a lyric. I'll have a tune in my head when I'm writing it, and then I will go to one of the guys and say, "I've got this lyric. I think it should go a bit like this," and they'll take it away and bring it back. And again, it might not be the same as, you know, I'm not precious about the lyrics. If they want to amend them, tweak them, make them fit better, that's fine, as long as it keeps the theme of the story behind it. They'll do that. Or similarly, somebody will bring a melody in and say, "I could do with a lyric to go with that." And one of us will come up with a lyric. Or in some instances, maybe Simon, or he'll bring a track in with a lyric, and it all kind of is all part of the package. So it's very much a collaborative process.
And as far as the album artwork, I wanted to ask if you could speak on it. Who did the artwork, and could you talk to me about it conceptually?
The theme, we wanted to have our last album, Falling Off the Edge of Forever, had a kind of steampunk theme to it. And we want to kind of embellish that. So I went to a friend of mine called Steve Morrison, who is a guitarist in a band called Tyson Dog, a new wave of British heavy metal band called Tyson Dog. I don't know if you're aware of them. And Steve's a graphic designer, and he went away, and I gave him the concept. I gave him the album title, and he went away and came back with 3 or 4 different ideas. But all based on the steampunk theme, but all based on different ideas. And the one we just decided that the one we picked was the one that most suited us.
And I wanted to ask you if you could take me back to the 80s and tell me how this all began.
Okay, back in the end of 1980, which is an awful long time ago. I'd known Steve Maguire, who's a co-founder of the band with myself. I'd known Steve for a lot of years. We played in the same soccer team in the early 70s. So I knew him. He lived probably half a mile from where I did. And we'd messed about in bands at school and garage bands and things like that. And he'd gone away to university. I'd gone to college. I was working in a bar while I was at college, and I met a guy called Dave, who turned out to be the original bass player, Dave Strathern. And we were chatting in the bar. I got to know him, and he said it would be great if we could start a band together. And I said, yeah, that'd be great, but we need to find the right people. Just after that, I found out that Steve was back from university and was playing in a rock band. So they were playing probably 4 or 5 miles away from where we are now. And I said to Dave, let's go and see them and see what they're like. And we went down and we saw them, and they were very good. They were great. And on the way back, while I was driving in the car on the way back to the pub, I said, yeah, they're great, but they'd be a lot better with us in it. If we replace their bass player and drummer, it would be a far better band. Joking, really. Right. And he said, yeah, why not? So I got in touch with Steve. I had a chat with Steve, and 2 weeks later, Troyen was born.
Wow. That's amazing. And I wanted to ask you as well, if you could tell me what led to the hiatus that the band had.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay, we had a very successful 1981, which led to an even more successful 1982, where we brought out the demo twice. It was selling really well. We were in negotiations with Neat Records, who were the driving force behind the new wave of British heavy metal in the UK, based up in the northeast in Newcastle. We were looking to sign a deal to do a single stroke EP with them. We toured Europe as a support act to Nightwing, and we did a 6-week tour of Europe, and everything was going great. And then we came home, and we were still in touch with talking with Nightwing. Nick had left the band at this point, and we continued as a 4-piece. We continued, but by the time we got to the end of 1982, beginning of 1983, real life got in the way. Really, we were all with partners, and we all wanted to develop our lives, buy cars, get a house, all that kind of thing. And the rock music industry just wasn't providing the finance to let us do that. So it just came to an agreeable but unfortunate ending, where we just decided that we weren't going to make a living out of it, and we just kind of went our separate ways.
And I wanted to ask you if you could talk to me about your musical background. At what age did you begin?
Right, when I was 7 years old, I think, my mother decided that I was going to be a pianist and that I would have to go for piano lessons, which I absolutely loathed. I absolutely hated it with a passion, because all I wanted to do was tap out rhythms and hit things. And I would use knives and forks. I would use spoons at the dining table, much to the annoyance of my parents. I would tap on the back of chairs, etc. So eventually, after 5 years of piano lessons, I convinced them to buy me a drum kit. And I got my first drum kit when I was 12 for Christmas, which was a very poor drum kit, if I'm being honest, but at least it was a drum kit. I didn't have to use pots and pans anymore. And I started, and it progressed from then. We got started. Some friends were playing guitar, and some friends were playing bass, and we just started having gigs around schools and things like that. And it just kind of progressed from then. But after Troyen split in beginning of 1983, I sold everything. I sold all my drum kit. I sold everything I had to do, because I wanted to buy a car. I wanted to progress with my life. Music wasn't delivering for me. So I sold everything. And I didn't touch a drum kit from 1983 until 2007.
Wow.
So I had a massive hiatus. I had a massive gap. And it was fortuitous. I met a friend, our ex-sound man in a local bar, and I hadn't seen him for 25, 26 years, something like that. And he said, "Are you still drumming?" I said, "No, mate, everything's gone. Everything went a long time ago." He said, "Oh, that's a shame, because a friend of mine is looking to start a rock covers band, and he's looking for a drummer." That was on the Sunday. By Thursday, I bought another kit. Wow. That was just the catalyst I needed. That was just the spark I needed to get back into it. So that started. We put a covers band together with Steve Maguire, who's a founder member of Troyen, and we did that, and we've been doing that since 2008. So not only am I the drummer and co-founder of Troyen, I'm also in a covers band, a rock covers band as well.
And when you picked up the sticks after that period of time, did it come to you like getting on a bike again?
Yeah, absolutely, it did. I was a little rusty, obviously, but it didn't take long to get back into the swing, quite literally the swing of it. Yeah.
And along your musical journey, what do you feel has been the best advice that's been given to you along the way?
The best, I had a good friend of mine, Steve Bartley, who's the drummer of Nightwing, who I've known for a long time. And he said, everybody drums in their own different way. Everybody's got their own style. Don't worry about what other people think. Do what you feel is right. And I think that's right. That's absolutely right, because no two drummers are the same.
Sure.
It's no point trying to think, oh, I'm not as good as him, or he's better than me, or I'm better than him, because everybody does it differently. Everybody plays different things. So be your own person. And that's kind of helped me a lot to kind of develop my own style, if you like.
Yeah. And along this career, what do you feel has been your proudest moment as a musician?
Right now, if I'm being honest, producing the album we've just produced. And before that, it was producing the album before that, Falling Off the Edge of Forever. Everything's a milestone. You know, we have great gigs playing in front of hundreds or thousands of people, and that's great. And then you might go and play a gig in front of 150 people, and that's just as good. It's just there's no one. The thing I'm proudest of right now, sat here talking to you, is the album that we've just brought out. Well, that may change next time we bring another album out, or next gig we do, or whatever. That might be something, you know, it might change.
Sure. And when you're not working on music, do you have any things that you like to pursue in your spare time?
I am a full-time grandpa. My grandchildren take up an awful lot of my time. My children consider me to be a suitable babysitter, so I look after my grandchildren an awful lot. It doesn't really give me a lot of free time to do the things I'd like to do, but I like to listen to music. I like to go for walks. I like to go and watch live music, because I think that's vital. You go and support other bands and gigs and venues, because venues are struggling. I think globally venues are struggling right now. So music is very much part of what I like to do, but my grandchildren take up an awful lot of my time, and they're wonderful as well.
And what lies ahead for the band? What do you see as the next step?
We have gigs across UK and Europe for the rest of this year. We're working on dates for next year. We're already tentatively talking about another album, possibly 2026, maybe possibly. There will be a live album out, hopefully, in next year. One of the gigs that we're doing in Europe later this year is being recorded. The set's being recorded, so hopefully, if that goes to plan, we'll bring a live album out then. So it's just a case of one step at a time. We have always said we will do what we do for as long as people want us to do it. And right now, people want us to continue to do it, so that's what we're going to do.
Yes, I feel personally this is your strongest album to date.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you know, I think the story behind the band is absolutely amazing, and the whole package is almost like it's meant to be that this band was to reform.
Yeah, I think so. I had a conversation with somebody a couple of days ago, and they said, do you regret the band splitting up in 1983, right? 82, 83? And I said, no, not really, because if it hadn't have done, I don't know where that band will have got to. Sure. I don't know how much longevity there would have been. And he said, do you think you would have still been going after 40 years? I have no idea. I really don't know. But I'm delighted that we did what we did in the 80s, but we had the opportunity to get back and do it all again now.
And what's the best way to get a physical copy of the album and any merchandise that you have? We
have all our merchandise, which is all our CDs. We have vinyl, we have beanie hats, we have patches, we have the whole 9 yards. On our, if you go to our Facebook page, there is a link to our merchandise site, and we will ship. We quite happily ship worldwide.
Great. And lastly, I wanted to ask you if you could give a message to your fans. What would the message that you deliver?
First of all, thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to do what we do. Thank you for appreciating what we do. And most importantly, thank you for wanting us to do it, and we'll continue to do it as long as you want us to. We're here until Troyen fans are no more. The album's called Unfinished Business, and it very much is unfinished business. There's more to come.
Well, I wanted to take a moment to thank you personally for delivering an album that I enjoyed from top to bottom. It is very hard for me to pick 2 tracks to discuss. I feel this band is the strongest it's ever been.
It is. The lineup is definitely the strongest lineup we've had, without a doubt. Again, there are 11 tracks on the album. One's a reworking of a track we've done before, a recurring Nightmare. We did a track Nightmare a couple of years back. It's just a variation on the theme. But there are 10 tracks on that I would happily go and play all 10 tracks live, quite happily.
Absolutely.
And enjoy doing it.
Well, thank you again, my friend, and I wish you a great rest of your day and much success in the future, my friend.
Thank you, Rob. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, my friend. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
You too.